He cheers us up when we are sad, Varley. Varley. He drinks more beers than Bobby B. Varley. Varley. He'll smite you down and put you in a bowl of brownies. Matty Varley, Vox number 1. Hello and welcome to Vassals of Kingsgrave, the Soccercast / hooligan cast, where we will be discussing the recently failed Super League and hopefully long-term failed. I am Pops88 and I'll be your host this evening, and tonight I have with me Bina.
Hey everyone, it's Bina 007 on the Discords.
And I have Bing.
Hello, I was shoeshiner on the forums. I think I'm just Bing now, I guess.
So guys, we have recently survived the first round of, an assault on our game, the European game. 1-0 to the little guys, or I more see this as we've won the first skirmish, but they'll definitely be back again one day with some sort of plan. Obviously, I think we're all agreed that it was a good idea that this was this didn't go ahead, and it was a great response. But what are your guys' thoughts on?
Should we explain to the casual vocker what it was, or do we just assume everyone here knows what we're talking about?
Probably should, given the call of arms had several people just utterly confused about what was going on.
Okay. Well, I'll do the preamble, and then you guys can talk about Super League. So the preamble is that in English sport in general, so whether it's football or rugby or whatever, there's a principle whereby teams will be tiered in different leagues, and the bottom few in each league, if you don't get enough points in that season, will be relegated to the league below. But conversely, you could be a tiny little team in a shitty tier 3 league, but if you play well enough, you can get promoted to tier 2 and tier 1. So the idea is that in English sport, you have the freedom to win, but also the freedom to lose, and that's what makes it exciting. And that if you were the very best in the English league, that you would qualify to play the best of the other European nations leagues in what's called the Champions League, which is for the top layer, and then the Europa League for the next layer. And because in English football you can sort of fail, a lot of the great teams have been great forever, but there are big names that have drifted out and other names that have got big rich owners and bought good players and come to the surface. So there are real stakes, both financial stakes and emotional stakes, to being a supporter, because it's not guaranteed that you'll always be in that top league, Premier League as we call it here, and it's not guaranteed you'll always make it into Europe for that really top level of football.
It's competition. It's that's the thrill that a lot of us get. And maybe you can elaborate a little bit more, Bing, but I've learned more about US sports in the last 2 weeks than I knew in my entire life before that. Because effectively what they were trying to recreate is the American model, right? Which is a closed league?
Not quite. So to explain the specific topic a little bit, I guess, the so-called Super League is this idea that was kind of sprung on everybody. And I do mean literally everybody, because before then it was just sort of a bunch of very secret meetings between specifically the owners and their top executives of 12 big clubs that have then suddenly announced that they're creating this something called the European Super League. So the thing that they proposed is this 15 permanent members in a league and then 5 teams that sort of rotate in and out. First of all, the rotating in and out, that's never part of an American league. The typical American sports league system, so it is a closed system in the sense that there is no promotion or relegation. The only way you can enter a league is you have to essentially buy your way in. You purchase a license, and then the team, and instead the league would instead of having teams move up and down from different leagues, instead the league, the major leagues, I guess you can refer to it, will just expand. So for example, baseball has expanded from something like 2017 to now 32 teams. Similar things have happened in basketball, hockey, American football, and so on. So that's how American leagues work, and it's not quite the same as the Super League.
Yeah, I find it weird though. It always strikes me as a bit ironic that the Indian Premier League, which is their newly created cricket tournament, well, I'll call the Premier League because I think there's a lot of Premier League soccer fans in India, actually is built on the American model because it is all franchises. So wealthy people set up a franchise with no real history attached to it. And you can win it, but you can't be relegated from it. In fact, the only way people really get kicked out of the IPL is because of fraud or corruption, and they're not seen as fit owners, and then they lose the license. But it's not because of sporting failure. And I do think there's something really England, I guess, in its own self mythology, has an idea of fair play and sportsmanship. And this idea, which probably isn't true given the importance of money and that we don't have salary caps, the idea romantically that some small little town football club that's been going for 100 years, if it just played out of its skin, Ted Lasso style, could make it to the top, I think is a very romantic one. And even in the age of mega salaries, right, in the age of these oligarchs who come in and buy our clubs, you still can have a team like Leicester who went on to win the Premiership. It's not always a Manchester City more recently or a Manchester United in the old days, which I think is, look at the season West Ham is having this season. I mean, I love the fact that there is, I love that, sometimes you can do well, unless you're Spurs or Arsenal, apparently. Should we declare our club allegiances? That'll probably help the listener as well, and talk about which clubs we're in.
Sure. I am an Arsenal fan, much to my humiliation on an annual basis.
So I am someone who's raised in a Spurs family, and probably highly unusually, having married an Arsenal fan, have converted to being an Arsenal fan. But I still have a soft spot for Spurs, which is weird. But I follow the advice of Abraham Lincoln very seriously, which is a house divided against itself cannot stand. So I am now Laguna. How about you, Bing?
So my favorite team is Blackburn Rovers. If this Super League idea came up in 1995, our team would definitely be in it. Nowadays, the people who came up with this idea probably have no idea what Blackburn is. I became a soccer fan at the wrong time, apparently.
Well, they've still won the league more recently than Tottenham, so
they did. They have, yes.
But this exactly shows you why the European Super League was stupid, because basically the teams who were going for it were the teams with a strong brand name, with a lot of history, but not necessarily the best teams to go forward. Like Arsenal and Tottenham Hotspurs would not qualify and have not qualified for the Champions League this season. And it's not clear they'll qualify for Europe at all next season. And yet somehow, because of brand name, we were going to be in this elite European Super League. That's an absolute
It is preposterous.
We're not.
It is preposterous. I mean, I was going to run through the timeline before we got into
That's good. Do that.
But so this all dropped Sunday. So we're recording this on the 1st of May. Sunday, the 18th of April was when this dropped.
During Line of Duty. So
I think it
was distracted.
I don't know. Was it in the evening? I thought it was.
It was it would be in the middle of the night for all of you, because I saw it.
It was
in the
basically
morning.
Before Line of Duty. You knew this was rumbling. There were rumors. And you knew there was going to be an announcement. The announcement was going to happen during Line of Duty, but then it didn't happen until even later.
Oh, so yes, you're right. There were rumblings. So on the timeline it says that the plans for the breakaway Super League was announced at around 2 or 3 in the afternoon. Condemned by the Premier League and FIFA, obviously. There's the famous Gary Neville rant on Sky Sports, and I want to get to him later. But then, yes, they said they were going to do it around 9 or 10 o'clock, and we didn't get it until 11:30. About all 15 teams wanting to join. So that was on the Sunday.
It's worth
I think it's only 12 out of 15.
That also on the Sunday, and before the big statement, Prince William came out with a personal tweet condemning it.
Yes, he did. He did come out with that.
Which I felt was the death knell.
I mean, just to show you how quickly, I mean, from the Sunday, there's Monday, there's more people putting it down. The UEFA president, I mean, ridiculous. UEFA can score any moral points on this, but there you go.
How morally corrupt are you when you make UEFA look good?
You make Boris Johnson, UEFA, and Amazon look like good guys.
I know.
It's just ridiculous, but there you are. The Liverpool players all had a game on Monday night, and then they all got Klopp spoke to the press. I mean, the thing is that all of these owners, I mean, talking about the big six in England, they all hid behind their managers. You know, and these are guys who are there for footballing purposes. They're there to, you know, choose the team, the substitutions, train them, pick the formations. They're not there to deal with, you know, the stewardship of several clubs and their involvement in.
And also, the managers didn't know, right? I mean, they were pissed off because they had.
They didn't know.
Arteta didn't know. Klopp didn't know. And they hated it. I mean, Klopp hated the idea. So
he spoke out when he was, I think, I can't remember if he was Dortmund or Liverpool, but a few years ago he spoke out very, you know, anti-Super League, and he kind of had to hold his tongue a bit here, which is fair enough because he shouldn't be the person to answer these questions. I mean, he said my opinion hasn't changed, which obviously is a callback to that interview a few years ago.
Do you want to speak about the special one? Jose Mourinho refused to lead the Spurs out onto the training ground on the Monday morning and was
so I think that was a Twitter rumor, unfortunately, that got reported.
There was a lot going around, and I think Jamie Redknapp dropped the true story. So Jose Mourinho got sacked before the EFL Cup final. It was done because Daniel Levy, who owns Tottenham, one of the guys involved in this Big Six breakaway Super League, because Tottenham was so low in the table, if he sacks him when the Tottenham are in that position, he can save 60 to 70% on his contract when he pays it out.
Which is insane because the payout was still 20 million, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, but if he'd paid it out at full, I think it was like 35 million. Jesus. So yeah, maybe my maths are a little off there, but 35 million would have been the payout because of the insane money Mourinho demands.
But, you know, sidebar on Spurs for a moment. I mean, it is amazing to me that they spent all that money hiring the special one to specifically get them titles.
Yeah.
And then literally the week of the Carabao Cup, they sacked him.
It's bonkers. It's bonkers because, I mean...
That's so bad.
Yes, you know, we all laugh at Tottenham, but you've not got the worst record in the Carabao Cup. It was a tangible option for you guys to get a trophy. So I don't understand it personally, and especially how close the game did turn out to be. You know, it was only 1-0.
Yeah. So there you go. Monday morning, Mourinho sacked, waking up. That comes from the Twitter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then there was the Liverpool game and all the players. So Milner became the first player to speak out. Klopp and Gary Neville had a clash about the use of "You'll never walk alone." And then Tuesday, the FIFA president Giannino Infantino strongly disapproved of the idea.
Well, you know what? I strongly disapprove of FIFA, so...
Yeah, exactly. Boris jumped on the bandwagon. Pep spoke out. Pep Guardiola. That's Boris Johnson, the Prime Minister, who's currently renovating his flat.
It's such a vote winner for Bojo, isn't it? Like, he's in the midst of a massive corruption scandal, and he can just divert in the run up to the May elections, and he can just basically win tons of working class votes by saying he'll do whatever it takes to protect football. Yeah, genius.
Genius.
This man is made of Teflon.
It's easy political points to score.
But he needs works. Whatever easy points he can get. I mean, we've got the local elections next week, and he's single-handedly sabotaging it for his party.
But he's not, though, is he? I mean, okay, another sidebar listener, because this is Boris Johnson. He's an electoral genius because he's got simultaneously a corruption scandal whereby party donors paid for the excessively expensive renovation of his flat in exchange for juicy contracts. He's got other corruption scandals going on with his government. He's got a scandal whereby he had a long-term affair with a woman called Jennifer Arcuri. He obviously ballsed up the first year of the pandemic, and yet he's a clear double-digit lead in the polls and a 20 percentage point lead with working class voters, despite the fact that he leads a right-wing posh party and went to Eton. I mean, it has to be implied genius. It has to be. It's insane. No. I mean, he really is the person who Trump thought he was, whereby if you went down Fifth Avenue and shot someone, you still get elected. It's just phenomenal to me. Much
like how when Arsenal were beaten by Everton 1-0, that wasn't because Everton were good. That was because Arsenal were bad. So I think if you look at the state of the other parties, you know, if you look at, I mean, you see the video go.
Oh,
I think you dropped. No, you're too enthusiastic.
No, you got too excited. We lost you. This is what happens when you discuss Arsenal losing a match. No, it gets overexcited.
Right. or Boris Johnson.
So when did Man City and Chelsea pull out? Because they were the first to pull out. I thought that was the Monday night.
Right. So to follow up, I guess, on what Noah was saying, so Chelsea had a game on Monday, right? Chelsea had a game against Brighton and Hove Albion. There was a massive protest among Chelsea fans. About 200, 300 people, I think, something like that, showed up outside of Stamford Bridge. That's so much so that the team bus couldn't get in, and their director, one of their directors, Peter Cech, their former star keeper, had to come out and sort of try to direct traffic in. And I think that was the exact moment when Chelsea dropped the news that they were going to pull out.
And it's sad because Petr Cech is like a really respected guy, and again, it's like owners hiding behind know, iconic ex-players, respected people. And let's also point out to the casual listener that the timing was perfect, because doing it in a pandemic was the perfect cover for them, because they would have never done this if people were in the stadiums, because it would have been, the fans would have gone nuts at the play.
Well, if you look at the reaction now, imagine what it would have been like with 60,000 in the stadium.
Yeah, I mean, it would have been civil war.
I mean, anyway, I live quite close to the Emirates, the Arsenal home ground, and the 5,000 or so people that turned up outside there is just incredible, but obviously scary in current times, but crazy, that sort of reaction.
It was quite amazing watching the Arsenal match that Thursday night, because if you switched off the fake crowd noise, you could actually hear the crowd outside protesting and the police helicopters overhead.
Right.
Yeah.
That must have been so weird as a player to have to play through that. So we're back to the timeline, Noah. So we're
sorry, I dropped
Chelsea
off.
Match.
Yeah.
That's okay.
So we had Chelsea. I mean, I was just kind of going through. We had the PSG president also. I think they were one of the first ones to drop out alongside Man City.
PSG was never in. PSG was
never in. Like by.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's moral points. With.
Well, we can explain, I guess, the detailed relationships between all these different clubs and high class and higher level people in a bit, but
Okay, sure. So we'll crack on with the timeline. So as you said, Chelsea fans were the first to gather, and then actually still on that Thursday, so more Liverpool players stepped out. They were the first team to tweet their opposition, and then Man United announced that Ed Woodward would be stepping down at the end of the season. And so the ground was falling out from underneath them a mere 48 hours after it begun, due to the absolute disgust that the entire football community showed.
Ed Woodward, what is he? Is he still the director of football at the time when he?
Some sort of senior executive at Man United. Their fans hated him. But again, I mean, it's not Ed Woodward; it's the Glazers, isn't it, at Man United?
Okay, so do we want to go into the detailed the relationships? So that's why when I said in Discord that this actually has very little to do with actual football being played, because
it's business.
Yeah, this is not about football. You're better off with a European law degree or knowing a lot about business to understand this than if you know anything about football, because none of it is really about football. The primary architects of this plan are as follows: the president of Real Madrid, Florentino Perez, whatever position he has, the director of football equivalent of Juventus, Andrea Agnelli. Again, so this is kind of ironic that this is being framed as sort of this American assault on an English game, when really the ringleaders of this was the president of the top Spanish team and the president of the top Italian team.
Unfortunately,
of course,
the reason why we say it's an American attack is the teams in England of those big six who agreed
right. So I'll get into that.
Were basically typically American owned, although in some cases I wonder whether they were proactive or coerced. When you read the stuff that got exposed in a Financial Times article, it sounded like some of the big teams were going ahead, and then they rang up Arsenal and said, do you want to be in it? And Arsenal were like, God, we're not sure. If you don't, then you're going to look bad, and it became kind of quite coercive. That could be arse covering, but it's interesting.
I think that is arse covering. It sounds to me like, I mean, for teams like Arsenal and Tottenham, this must have been going on in the background, secret meetings for months and probably even years, And I think for two teams, as we've touched upon, for Arsenal and Tottenham, how badly they've done this season, and arguably probably shouldn't be in this league, to be involved in that probably suggests that this wasn't a last minute call up. This was more of I feel like Arsenal, actually, to be honest, our owners were a big part of this, unfortunately, and it just, a club with such traditional values and all about, helping out the community and stuff, and it's just deplorable to see someone, charged with that responsibility.
In fairness to the Cronkies, and I can't believe I'm saying that, because the Cronkies, I think, I think they're a typical, how the English fan would perceive it when they talk about Americans attacking English football, I think is summed up in like the Cronkies, right? In fairness to them, they don't understand football. Why would they? Their Arsenal holding isn't even one of their biggest holdings. They're very used to owning teams on the franchise model. So why wouldn't they want this one to be on the franchise model too?
Well, of course, and it's what...
From their perspective, we get quite pompous in England because we think sport is a certain thing, right? And it's the freedom to win, it's the hope to win and the freedom to lose. But if you've come from that American tradition, which doesn't have relegation in it, then maybe they genuinely just didn't see that this would be so freaky to Brits. Because on one level, you can say, well, the Arsenal fans should be happy. There's going to be a lot more money in the game. We're going to split this 300 million. We can buy better players. There'll be more top flight football. You don't have to worry about getting into Champions League. And
I agree with you.
And that's what Josh Kroenke said afterwards, didn't he? He said,
I agree with you.
Arsenal fans hate this, but the global Arsenal fans love it. And I think we should talk about a bit the rising popularity of Premier League outside of England on basically what different fan cohorts want from the game.
Well, absolutely. And you have to talk about the shift in the business as well, where 20 years ago it was mostly match day revenue, and TV money had less to do with it, whereas now TV money is in most clubs 70-80% of the revenue. It's insane, the money sloshing around the Premier League. I remember when back when I was a kid and Arsenal were getting in the Champions League, that 30, 40, 50 million, it was always touted as, Arsenal needed that money to survive. And it was more than just the top four. It was keeping the club afloat. And the same is said, the jump from the Championship and being promoted to the Premier League is just incredible in terms of money. And that's the case. I mean, fortunately, the Premier League is fairer than other leagues. If you look in Spain, the distribution of those the TV revenue isn't as fair and equal. And I think that's the same. I'm not sure about Germany and France, but I think that's the same in Italy too.
Yeah, it's Italy is actually pretty fair, but that's the newest deal that they negotiated.
Right.
Germany is even more fair than Britain.
It would be. They've got fantastic business models for like Bayern Munich and Borussia Dortmund especially.
But a lot of those German clubs come out of a tradition that's owned, either union-owned or fan-owned, right? It's a very different...
PN1, their ownership model is dictated by law that it has to be that way. I mean, there are definitely ways around it, of course. I mean, or else you wouldn't have a Red Bull Leipzig. But at the very least, it sort of safeguards against like the majority of their league being dominated by foreign owners.
And that to me is the irony of this whole experience, because now Bojo, in a populist fit, has decreed a commission on football, and he could come up with the answer. He won't, because he's a Tory. But you should have a 50+1 rule here. So the owners who've got away with a lot of greed for a long time and made a lot of money by pushing it that little bit too far could end up now in a worse position than when they started.
Yeah.
Because now they've unleashed a genuine debate about what people have put up with this ownership for a while, knowing that it was basically shit.
Mm-hmm.
Like the Cronkies have no financial necessity for us to pay properly for us to be good enough to be in Champions League. If we're somewhere between 5 and 8, they'll still make money, and they do that with all of their teams. So it's this could actually really screw them over now.
Well, going back to the point, Arsenal rely more heavily on matchday revenue than I think any other club in the UK. So this pandemic has hit them hard. And again, this is why they've pushed it forward now. Real Madrid and Barcelona have a ridiculous amount of debt. Man United have an insane amount of debt. They wanted to secure their revenue, so every year they don't have to rely on competition or having a good team. It will just be always this money. It's guaranteed to come in. And that's all they're doing. And it's sorry, I'm on one here. They're just that the reason that they're hiding behind a pandemic is just disgusting, absolutely deplorable. And then when it all collapsed, they haven't even had the balls to come out and say, right, we fucked up, we're listening now. They hid behind their managers.
Man City said that. And it's interesting that Man City, I never know why they were doing it anyway, because they don't need, they're the one that don't need.
So there's different tiers to this, right? There are different tiers to this. There's the people who really wanted this, and the people who are actually still trying to get this done somehow. And those are so that's Real Madrid, Barcelona, and Juventus. And these are teams that are actually in real financial peril, as in they have so much debt that Barcelona is close to bankruptcy. Barcelona is not paying the wages of their players right now. Juventus is in serious financial trouble, and as well as the other two Italian clubs that have joined. Inter Milan. Inter Milan's owners recently had lost their team in China. Had the team dissolved in China. And that team actually won the Chinese championship just last year. AC Milan. AC Milan is currently owned by what are they called? They're a hedge fund. They're currently owned by a hedge fund, American hedge fund, because of serious fucked up things that happened with their ownership 2 years ago. So these are teams that are in real financial peril, and for them, this is something that was conceived to save their club. Now, saving their club has a different meaning for Real Madrid. Saving for Florentino Perez, saving the club means not just ensuring the financial future, but also allowing to buy Erling Haaland for 100 million in transfer market. It's very diluted, I guess, sense of importance. Now, the Premier League clubs, the owners there, their reason for joining in are sort of a mix of, I guess more for security's sake, but also especially for the owners of Chelsea and Man City. There was also the sense of of fear of missing out, FOMO, and that's especially true for Chelsea and Man City. And those were the two, I think, the last two teams to join, and they did so reluctantly, and they were also the first ones to pull out, because they had the least stake in this. They just feel like if they weren't part of this gravy train, then they'd be stuck playing the Evertons and West Hams. In that case, it was just simply a real misstep, because they did not need this. Whereas if you look at the owner, for example, of PSG had the Qatari owners of PSG. They have a very close relationship with UEFA and FIFA. That's why Qatar has the World Cup in 2022. And they never needed this. And because of their close relationship and their vested interest in the Champions League continuing, they rejected that deal, and I guess make themselves look better right now, even though it's really, all of these clubs, you can't think of them as clubs these days. Those at the very top, they are corporations. No. They're brands, and they behave like corporations and brands. They try to maximize their profit, but when public reception gets as bad as this, then they try to play PR. Right?
Yeah, and I don't resent that, right? Like, I'm the world's last Thatcher, right? I believe in capitalism. I think it's great, but I think it's a fundamental misunderstanding on the part of the owners to think that the brand is enhanced by being in a Super League. Yes, right. There's a short-term financial payoff, and I get why someone like Barcelona, who literally can't pay the wage bill, would find that attractive. But for a Man City or a Chelsea, the tarnishing to, and any of the English clubs where this concept, this national mythologizing around romantic fair play, whatever, is so strong, I think it was so brand tarnishing that ultimately long term it wasn't going to be helpful and wasn't going to be financially a positive. Right. I get that it's a business. All sport is a business. I love cricket. Cricket's a business, right? It's all about the television revenue and the brand and having, foreign eyeballs watching your match as much as domestic. I get it. But this to me just seemed like such a retrograde step, even for a club like Spurs or Arsenal, where, they've built stadia, they got into debt, they're not always guaranteed European football, but fundamentally they're solvent, Yeah.
So, none of the English club needed this.
Exactly.
Like Real Madrid or Barcelona feel like they needed this, but so the people who were probably the most involved on the British side were the Glazers and Woodward. And Woodward was even though he tried to deny his role in later on, but he was one of the person who signed this thing and negotiated this thing. And Woodward was also probably the person who got JC Morgan to financially back this entire concept with supposedly 3.5 billion or something like that to start out the league. JP Morgan have since renounced this idea as well.
Yeah, they've really apologized, haven't they? One of the few involved who have.
I mean, the writing was on the wall, though, guys, right? I mean, It's been for the last 20, going back to, almost to the year 1995, where we were talking about Blackburn winning the league. Since then, it's slowly just become more and more about money and the numbers, the wages players get paid, the transfer fees, the money that clubs are being bought for, and just the general money that's sloshing around the game has just skyrocketed. And I feel like they thought they could get away with this because we've not really, when Arsenal buy Pepe for 72 million, and he's definitely not worth 72 million. There aren't, protests outside the ground, obviously, because it's, it's not Arsenal fans' money. But we're just so desensitized to these numbers and footballing decisions being made about money that maybe they thought they could just get away with it. Maybe they thought we were so desensitized to all of this. And, even, to go back to Gary Neville and why I brought him up a few times, like, yes, what he said was absolutely spot on, but he's doing it from the Sky Sports studio, who have single-handedly turned the English game into this, cash cow.
But in fairness to Gary Neville, he said that, right? I mean, he said that in his speech where he said, I've made money from the game. I'm not resenting making money from the game. I'm not resenting players who want.
Well, of course he wouldn't.
But, like I say, he was self-aware enough. And I think everyone understands that the original breakaway league was the Premier League.
Yep.
But at the end of the day, the Premier League is an open elite. No one is guaranteed. There's a lot of cash in it. And of course, you can have a richer owner and spend more on players. But fundamentally, you cannot buy your way in and you cannot maintain your status beyond impunity.
And ultimately, that's what drives the fear of our teams, especially like Arsenal and Tottenham, why they really wanted to join this. Because if you look at the league table right now, where Arsenal and Tottenham are, there's no guarantee that they're going to just be better in 2 or 3 years. Because when you look across the English Premier League right now,
not if Arteta's it won't be.
Probably not, but a lot of teams now have money. Not as much as Everton, definitely not as much as Man City or Liverpool.
It's all relative. Relative. If everyone has money, then no one has money. If you see what I mean.
Yeah, sure. But that's the issue here for teams like Arsenal, Tottenham. Teams like Everton can spend as much these days as Tottenham and Arsenal can. Teams like Wolverhampton is fun. They have an agent, a top football agent attached to their team, funneling players from Portugal into their team. You even clubs like Brighton and Hove Albion. And Brighton and Hove Albion was in like League One in just like 5 or 6 years ago. Now they can spend 30, 40 million on players. Sheffield United spent how much on what's his name? The Ryan Brewster, even though
20 odd million,
even though he has he's a 21-year-old who has not shown anything at the top level to prove that he's worth that money. That's the problem. That every team in the Premier League now can spend. Even teams in the Championship can outspend typical top level teams across Europe. So the fear is Arsenal could very much, if we're talking about this in 10 years, Arsenal, Tottenham, they could be gone. They could be gone. Well, it could be Blackburn.
Well, I think in those two specific examples, they're heavily tied to the stadium. So obviously Tottenham more recently have built a new stadium and are in a lot of debt because of that. And Arsenal, I'm not too sure on the finances, but they're still probably paying off that, the stadium move from 2006. It's mad. It's mad. But yes, I was disgusted. Yes, I'm glad that it's not happening. But I can't say I'm not surprised. And for me, it was like a bit of a cold slap in the face, just waking me up and making me see the game for what it is. Don't get me wrong. I'm still invested in my team. And when we get battered next Thursday by Villarreal and we go out of the Europa League, I will cry tears.
We're not going to get battered. Lacaz's back, Alba's back, Tierney's back. It's a different
Well,
team.
we'll see.
I don't think.
We'll see. We'll see.
Yeah,
But it definitely did. It definitely did. It was a wake up moment for me. And then hearing all of these. I mean, yes, Gary Neville is very aware of how much money he makes in football. He has also invested in Salford FC along with 3 or 4 other ex-Man United players, and they've achieved 4 promotions in 5 years. That's artificial. That's not playing well. That's sloshing money around the game. And he sits there and has the balls to call out Jurgen Klopp and all of these people in football. And I don't know. It just feels like everyone's very hypocritical at the moment.
As a Blackburn supporter, this has been my reality for for the past 15 years or so already. We got a foreign owner. It's just our foreign owner sucks and are not rich enough, and hence we are where we are. Well, I mean, at different levels, right? Our owners got us relegated all the way into League One, and now we're.
And maybe we should then talk about the hypocrisy of fans, right? Because I think was it Arscast or the Tuesday Club, one of the Arsenal podcasts was talking about, what is a good owner these days? What makes a good owner? You've got to be a billionaire.
Yep.
But
well,
if some Saudi Arabian sheikh from a country with an awful track record on human rights and dodgy money came in and splashed the cash and we suddenly became Man City, would we say anything or would be loving it? Do we worry about Qatari money?
Ask the Newcastle fans about how much they like Saudi money.
Yeah, exactly. And it's kind of like, who's going to be all these players who stood up, for football, apparently. How many of them are going to withdraw from the Qatar World Cup on the grounds that people died building the Qatar World Cup? I mean, no genuine football fan who actually has any morality whatsoever should be watching that Qatar World Cup. That has got blood on its hands.
Yeah.
We're all going to do it because it's a World Cup and we're going to watch it. So are we better than the owners? I don't know.
Well, so the owners are the owners. They live in their own world. Their reasons for owning the football teams. Some of them own football teams to make money for their other businesses. Some of them own football teams as a
way of laundering their Russian oil money.
Sure, some of them own football teams just because they want to have a nice toy to show off to their other rich friends. The owners are never your friends. I hope this is something that at the very least for all the people who support those top teams who have been having so much fun in the past few years understand this. The owners are never your friends. And that's true all across football these days. If you ask, for example, Liverpool fans last season after they won their first first English title in how many decades, how they feel about FAG. You'll see people who sing their praises up and down. FAG and now they want John Henry's head. But the FAG have always been FAG. That's who they are. They who they have always been. They've always been about making the best business decisions for themselves. That was true when they still own the Boston Red Sox, and there has been their ownership style in for the Boston Red Sox. That's just the reality. It has always been true.
His apology video, John Henry, was
that was special.
So bizarre.
That was special.
It was. Have you ever seen the South Park covering the BP oil spill?
Yes.
And they take the piss out of their Tony Hayward, I think it is.
Yeah.
His apology video. It was so akin to that. It was ridiculous. I just
love it.
Absolutely hilarious. But I mean, what do you guys think? Do you think this is it? We've squashed it, or I mean, as you say, being like
they'll have another go, won't they? I mean,
well, this specific plan it's poisoned. It's dead. This thing failed because it was ill-conceived from the very beginning. They say they had 15 clubs, but only announced it with 12 clubs, and the other 3 clubs presumably are Bayern Munich, Borussia Dortmund, and PSG. And they said outright, they said no. If they didn't have those actually confirmed to have those clubs, they never should have announced this in the first place. That was really their biggest failure. But what we won't see. I don't think we will see this Super League idea being raised unless but there will be different things. So I don't know if you guys remember, like earlier last year, there was these same clubs in England trying to push forward this project Big Picture.
That rings a bell.
That was yet another.
So what was that? That does not ring a bell to me.
So that was these were the same big six clubs coming in with this idea of reform at the top of the English game, in which that would consolidate more power to them to make key decisions about the Premier League going forward. So and you can even see I guess you can see a little bit see it as a little bit of a precursor of that. I think essentially they want to do what Real Madrid and Barcelona already have in Spain.
It's hilarious though, because as you say, these are the two clubs in £1 billion or euros of debt, and they have caused this through the inflation of their own doing.
Yep.
They have caused this situation where they need this revenue.
And that's fundamental. That's fundamentally the problem with this entire idea. So I don't know. Did you guys read about how Florentino Perez tried to justify this idea on Spanish television?
Yes.
No, what did
about
he
young
say?
people.
No, do you remember what he said?
It was to do with the attention span of young viewers, I think, and how young people just they can't pay attention for a whole 90 minutes, or they only watch when it's like Bayern Munich versus Real Madrid.
Oh, do please fuck off.
I know, when you look at the protests, and the average age was probably in the mid-20s.
There were two ways in which the whole commentary around this was very condescending. There was an element that was very condescending toward American football fans and American fans of sport.
Right.
Like,
well, this is designed for the overseas fan. I was like, that's really condescending. Why would you assume overseas fans are less invested in actual competition than we are? And then the idea that it's young fans who have attention deficit order and don't want the cold night in Stoke. They just want to watch us play, Real Madrid every weekend. And I was like, well, they'll tire, won't they? If they're an Arsenal fan who don't actually deserve to be playing Real Madrid every weekend and therefore are losing 5-0 every weekend, they'll soon fucking tire of that, I guess the point was that once you had the share of the 300 million, you could buy players that would make you not lose 5-0. But the whole thing was just cockamamie and very condescending in how it was all written up. It really was.
Yeah, it was insane. I mean, they just wanted to turn football into a FIFA game,
And their assumption is that kids these days, they like to play video games rather than watch football. So we need to somehow get these kids stop playing video games and instead watch football.
You can just picture the boardroom that they're all sitting in, like,
right.
What can we do?
I'm sure you, Florentino Perez, 74-year-old man, knows a lot about kids these days.
Right. It's just it was incredible. It was really, a part of me can't quite believe it, because it was over so quickly before you even had time to get used to it. Blink and you'll miss it. I mean, the last thing I have here on the timeline is Wednesday, 21st of April at 1 a.m. So barely Tuesday's over, and the Super League announces plans to reshape the project, and then just all the other teams pull out, and just astonishing. Probably about 50 hours, 50 that it existed for. I mean, do you guys take any kind of what positives can we take from this? Does it show the values of football are still there, and does it show that fans still have some integrity even though our clubs don't?
I think it just says more about social media's power to whip up a hysterical response and then a quick climb down. I mean, we live in an age of social media mob campaigns, and some of them are for the good and some of them are not for the good. And this was on the side I like, so I think it's for good. I mean, social media's ability to mobilize public opinion and get things to resonate beyond just genuine soccer fans. I think why this collapsed so quickly is because it wasn't just pissing off soccer fans, it was pissing off the average English person who doesn't really care about soccer or isn't a fan of these clubs, but just felt it wasn't fair and it wasn't right. So, but then I'm also very conscious that there are lots of topics that I think are very unfair that social media whips up. So, I think it's just the nature of the time that we live in.
I also think this shows like players have power here. And I think that's something the owners probably don't take into account when they're saying like kids these days, they want to, so let's see how these kids actually watch football today. if we're talking about the FIFA crowd, well, they follow players more than clubs these days now. They follow Ronaldo and they follow Messi. And
especially the international fan, the so-called the new fans they're trying to target.
And that's fundamentally their issue. The something that's also sort of cuts down at the bottom of this Super League idea, that they're trying to build this using the brand names of the clubs, when possibly we're talking about an era in which that might become increasingly irrelevant.
Yeah, I mean, Korean fans watch Premier League for Song, not for Spurs.
Yeah, dude. What was Manchester City 10 years ago? Well, I mean, I guess 15 years ago. Was Manchester City a popular brand 15 years ago?
It was where David Seaman went to retire.
Yeah, or Peter Schmeichel, or it's like and it was but then they bought Sergio Aguero, they bought Yaya Toure, David Silva, Kevin De Bruyne.
Well, I mean, they bought a lot of crap before that.
But that's the thing.
Didn't they buy what's his name from Blackburn? Dunn.
They bought Roque Santa Cruz.
Rocky Santa Cruz, yeah.
Yeah, no, they failed first, and then they figured things out, and now they have a brand. But they have a brand because they're the team of Aguero, they're the team of David Silva, they're a team that wins.
Team of Liam Gallagher.
Yeah. I mean, he loves that. He loves the attention, doesn't he?
I mean, honestly, I mean, his Twitter feed is just. I would strongly recommend anyone, regardless of whether you're a fan of Oasis, follow Liam Gallagher on Twitter. He got me through the pandemic. He's hilarious.
But yeah, so like these are the increase. I think it's going to be increasingly true in that again. If we're going to say anything about sort of younger fans and what they and what they enjoy in the game and what trends they follow, it's that players are probably going to become more having more and more power, going to have more and more power. And they kind of do these days already, and definitely players and definitely their agents have a lot of power now these days in the game as well. And they were also not part of this conversation, by the way, at least on the surface. So I think if anything is going to go by, I think that's also another part of the anxiety of these clubs, that in reality, if Florentino Perez is really honest about sort of seeing where the game is trending towards the players, well, Real Madrid might not be a big brand. Their brand will depend. The very brand of Real Madrid is buying all the best players in the world, right?
Well, it has been for 20 years, since
and
the Galacticos.
And that is the model that's got them to where they are right now financially, right?
Absolutely.
So if they can't afford to buy all these big players in Florentino Perez's eye, that's when his club fails. He's not just that he just wants a sustainable club. He wants a club that can continue to buy Erling Haaland 400 million.
Well, sure, because I mean, as much as he doesn't want to believe it, he is an old man stuck in his ways with absolutely no idea how to steer football in the right direction.
Of course, these are the people who's going to save football.
Sorry, yes.
But I guess to round this up into an actual point, then I think to go back to they come back again. Well, they're going to try to come back with something that's different. But this sort of idea is dead in the water.
Or does it prompt a change in ownership? Do you think that what is the probability that the Kroenkes sell to Daniel Ek?
Oh God, so I mean, that's a whole. Jesus, I could do 40 minutes just on that. But I mean, is that a situation? Yes, we want the Kroenkes out, but is it a situation that we want to trade one billionaire for another, and another billionaire who's likely going to have to leverage the club eyeballs just to? Then we're in a Man United situation. Brainless football fans who just care about what's on the pitch. But I mean, it all trickles down. It's why Arsenal though. Yeah. You just think how much old the time to go, but
hey, you drove him out of the club.
Well, not me. And I think I don't know structure in place for a future. I mean, if you think of different from Gasidis, Sanyehi, Mislintat, consistently there. I mean, to go back to the point about football as a business and everything like that, I think certainly as an Arsenal fan, it just feels like such a betrayal, because even in my very short lifetime, I can remember when the club was owned by a board, and it was fans owned shares in the club, and you could go to the AGM, and pose your questions, and there was a bit more accountability, and it feels like those days are becoming more and more sort of, the romantic historical days. They feel like 1,000 years ago. It feels like the landscape of football has just changed so much.
Yeah, which is why I feel it's inevitable that I feel that it's like, if you look at cricket, which is my real love as a sports person, then in the early 80s, Kerry Packer tried to sort of commercialize cricket by creating sort of one-day formats with and it wasn't that successful in breakaway leagues. But then it did come back in the 90s with sort of, coloured outfits, but it was still at national level. And then you got the IPL that came in with T20, I guess 10 or so years ago now. And now you have the 100, and it is, again, it's moving away from national teams. It's moving away from counties to being franchise owned and guaranteed income, and no one gets relegated. And yes, it took, that's 40 years in the making from its earliest rumblings. But if you date the start of this at the Premier League, which I know does have relegation, but really was the start of the cash cow, and that was mid-90s, and then add 40. So, say 1990, we're now 30, so maybe in 10 years' time this does take off. I think these things take time, and they have a go. But certainly in my lifetime, I think we will end up with basically the franchise model, which makes me profoundly sad. And ancient clubs, like centuries-old local teams, people will still play for the love of it, and people will turn up and there'll be crowds of 300, 500 for the fun of it in the rain on a Saturday. But that'll be a totally different game. It'll be a game that's very far removed from what's the public consumption model. And maybe that's okay. That you have genuine sport that's for the love of it, and then you have the business of sport that's for the business.
So
sorry, go on, Bingo.
Oh yeah, no, sorry. Just very quickly. I mean, I would just like to point out that I've known this to be the truth far much longer before the Super League idea. That has been Blackburn's reality. Blackburn are not playing in the same game as Manchester United or Manchester City, and hasn't been for 20 years.
And you can see that, see that gap between other leagues in the Premier League. I mean,
I see it within
I
see it within the Championship.
Yeah,
right. Watford's owned by wealthy Italian owners who can just immediately bounce back to the Premier League after getting relegated. Blackburn does not have the resources right now to compete with Watford.
And you're playing different games. I think you're totally right. And I think that you see that when players come into the Premiership from other well-established countries with leagues. And not to personalise this to Arsenal, but we have the whole time, so who cares? Ceballos is just like such a total fucking waste of space. But he said he prefers La Liga. I know why. Because he's actually not good enough to play in the Premiership. It's just a faster, harder game, right? So people aren't, this romantic myth that we have that someone in the bottom of the league system could, through sheer skill and might, get to the Premiership and then to the Champions League has long since been bollocks, because people are playing completely different games with completely different rules and completely different budgets.
I agree in terms of teams, but there are those wonderful stories you hear. I mean, whatever you think of Jamie Vardy as a person, he was playing in the lower leagues up until his late 20s, and and then he's winning the league with Leicester, and getting the Golden Boot. And it
happens just often enough that we keep believing in the right.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's the magic of the FA Cup. It's why we love that so much. You get every few years, you'll get. I remember, Liverpool versus Havant and Waterlooville in the quarterfinals or whatever 10 years ago. You get these. Arsenal played Sutton United.
Us Arsenal winning it last year, because that that's not a tournament. That doesn't take sustained brilliance and cash. That's just, are you good enough on the day? So we could be FA Cup winners, right? But
that was won by Aubameyang on his own. He scored both goals in the semis, both goals in the final.
Well, the reason we're in the Europa League is because of Saka on his own. So that
I know that he knows how to win a penalty.
He does. He does indeed.
I mean, just to circle back, the first thing I did when I heard about the Super League was go to my local team growing up, Leyton Orient, and look at how to get a season ticket for them.
Good.
Well, but that's what a lot of people have said. Like, if the fans really mean it, the fans should we should all ditch Premiership teams and do what Bing's done, but he did it unintentionally. Go and find our local club and support them and turn up on a Saturday in the rain to watch our local club and get those crowds from 500 people to 1,500 people to 2,500 people and watch actual football. And we're not going to do it because the standard of play is shit and it's not as much fun. So
it is a lot of fun though. Honestly, going to one of those little grounds is a lot of fun. I sit right near the away fans and there's, probably only about 60 of them. But they all scream their heads off, and it's how football should be. When you're watching it, you should be loud and sweary, and
rainy day in Stoke.
and then at the end of the game, you shake hands and you walk away. It's not the hooligan element is not quite there anymore. I mean, I'm sure you get rivalries everywhere, but it's the camaraderie as well with your own fans, and it's just lovely. Who doesn't want to spend £8 on a shitty pie that will probably give you stomachache?
I've never lived anywhere near Blackburn. I've only visited Britain once in my life for like 3 or 4 days, so I can't claim to ever be engaged with my British club at that level. I guess I'm the sort of I'm the supposed to be the target of the Super League, the global fan. Except I guess I'm an abomination in the eyes of these people, and I stick to supporting my shitty championship team for the entirety of my life. But I mean, it's a different game. It can be a very fun game. So in the US, what we have is there are the professional leagues, and then there's the college game. And the college game is very much its own. It has its own huge following on its own. I mean, it's not I won't say that it's somehow better or cleaner or whatever. It has its own huge problems. But it's, I mean, in the level that it's not as good, like for example basketball or football, soccer, sure, as say the NBA or the MLS, but it has its own appeal, right? And it gets the locals going. It gets a lot of they get a lot of local support, and there is something in that. So I think in the long term, I think what is much more worrying than these super clubs trying to be even more super is the actual problems in lower in the league is that there are serious financial problems, and then in terms of the money that's currently going around in the game, in which certain teams.
Do you think we should have salary caps per league to stop?
That's another American idea.
Yeah,
I agree. I think you should. I think it should be done proportionately. I mean, but then you look back at financial fair play and what a catastrophic disaster that was.
True.
So you draw up these rules, and these billionaires are going to get the best lawyers in the world to find loopholes. So, I mean, what can you do? I mean, unless, well, it goes to your earlier point of Bojo putting some restrictions on it from the government, as opposed to anything the Premier League can do.
Speaking of legal stuff, you know how the Real Madrid guy was like, "Oh, you can't just drop out now. We've signed binding contracts for 30 years." Do you think any legal action will be taken against the clubs who dropped out?
I think there should be.
As in from the Super League or from
the Super League, or both? Yeah.
By the Super League, I don't know. Maybe I have no idea what deal they actually signed. It doesn't sound like a real contract. Or else you would think that then the Chelsea wouldn't just immediately just say nope, or we're just going to nope out of this.
But who pays all the legal fees? I mean, presumably someone owes JP Morgan money for drawing up all these contracts and debt agreements.
They raised the money for it.
There are monies owing.
JP Morgan dropped out immediately too, so I don't know.
Well, someone's footing the bill for this. It'd be interesting to know who. Yeah.
Probably Florentino Perez and Andrea Agnelli, which is why they.
What's another 30 million on $1 billion debt?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean,
but someone's got it. For a year of plotting and planning, there are lawyers and accountants and bankers involved.
Absolutely.
I just wonder who's picking up the bill.
That's a very good point.
Well, go ahead.
I think there should be some accountability. I mean, I don't know if they'll actually, impose any sanctions on teams. I mean, something should happen, a transfer window ban, docked points, something should happen, I think, because otherwise this will just sprout, this will come back sooner than we like.
So that's so that then we're talking about like repercussions from UEFA and FIFA. But like so my question is like, what law do they have to actually impose this?
Well, it would be the Premier League, I thought, wouldn't it?
Well, what does the Premier League have to in order to actually?
Or sorry, maybe the FA.
What does the FA have to sanction them for? They didn't actually go through with this plan. This plan originally didn't say that they. I mean, that's the thing about this plan is it didn't say that they're actually going to break free. We assume that's going to be the eventuality because obviously, but they did say they want to somehow compete in the Premier League at the same time as the Super League.
It would more replace the Champions League.
Yeah, that's the idea, right? And which is why UEFA has been so angry, has been the most angry about this. But like, what kind of sanction can you actually impose on it? And is it even fair to sanction the club, the club, as in the players, what the players are doing on the pitch, what the managers do, even though they're not part of this? Should the fans be punished for again a few people at the top plotting? I mean, I think what the actual real repercussion is stuff we already see. People like Ed Woodward stepping down and replaced by some other people, and that's and some of them will get kicked out of some Premier League commissions and get run out of key decision making roles for now, which has already happened in the Premier League and probably will happen very soon. Has already happened at UEFA and will probably happen very soon in some other leagues, and that's it.
The wheels keep spinning.
Yep.
Well, it's funny because our new CEO Vinay, Arsenal.
Don't get very attached to him. He's probably gone in a few months.
Oh no, absolutely. I mean, I never was, to be honest. He was just another corporate figurehead that is always going to take the fall whenever the Cronkies fuck up. But he joined. I think it's the ECA. I don't know, all of
European
representing something like that. Yeah, he joined that, and then 2 weeks later resigned from it when Arsenal announced the Super League plans. Yeah. So are we going to come crawling back? Will they let us back on? I mean, a lot of these.
They're already begging to be get back to be let back in.
Well, thank you guys for joining us for our very infrequent Soccercast. It was great to debunk the Super League with you guys, and power to the people.
Look forward to talking about this in 5 years later.
Well, hopefully we'll Soccercast before then to discuss the Euros. I guess would be the next good time to do one.
Oh yeah, we want to do that.
That's a great idea. Yeah, that sounds really good. We can have our predictions and stuff. Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. This has been great, guys. Speak to you soon.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks, Bina.
Oh, didn't do the whole like, comment, subscribe thing. Oh well.
We can tag that in at the end.
Like us, comment on us.
Yeah.
I had a few little silly bits. I made a couple of football chants for us.
Okay.
So the first one is a classic, just Bina, Bina, Bina.
Oh, specifically for us. Okay, and I've always.
Yeah. And I've got one for you.
Okay.
I've got. We've only got one Bing. We've only got one Bing. We've only got one Bing.
I wish that's the case. Microsoft did not crimp my name for their own engine.
Which is akin to the Alex Song one.
Do you have one for yourself?
I didn't make one for myself. I've got a Thrones related one as well, which is stand up if you hate season 8. Stand up if you hate season 8. Stand up if you hate season 8. Stand up.
Right.
Which will get all our listeners on their feet, I'm sure. And then because I was almost certain that Varley was going to join us for some reason. I thought someone came to me in a dream and told me, but they lied. I've got this one, which is he cheers us up when we are sad, Varley. Varley, he drinks more beers than Bobby B. Varley. Varley, he'll smite you down and put you in a bowl of brownies. Matty Varley, Vox number 1. Da 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 da.
Hopefully he will listen to this.
Yeah, I should enjoy that. I thought he was definitely going to join. I thought he was a bit of a sports fan, but no well. sure we'll catch him on the next one. But yes, it's been a crazy old couple of weeks. It's mad to think it was 2 weeks ago this all happened.
There was a lot of refreshing of I think of Reddit and other like news sites.
Yeah. Frantic 48 hours.
Twitter accounts. There's I guess it made people pay a lot of attention. Everybody across the world pay a lot of attention to football, just to soccer.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I don't know. You probably had to explain to just as many family and friends as I did. Like, so what is this Super League?
I let's assume I talked to Finn. I'm just kidding. Yeah. I mean, I think again, it's not really about football, is it?
Well, that's why. Yeah. It's mad. It's mad. I mean, so much so my fiance has such a good grip on it and like was really into it and like was cheering along with me when the whole plan got shot down. But yeah, it's been bonkers. It's been bonkers, but it's certainly opened my eyes.
Yeah, I think in the end, I think it's just like it shows you how incompetent people can be at the very top.
Definitely.
I'm not surprised by the greed and all that stuff that has always been there. But yeah, you would think you announce something like this, you come up with a better plan, and not one that eventually like that didn't have 3 out of the 15 teams that you say are going to be part of it. You don't even know that they're going to be part of it when you announce it. And at the moment there's any trouble, 6 of them immediately go into hiding. So
I strongly suspect these people will be involved. Well, we've survived this round. On to more positive matters. Who have Blackburn got? Is it today or tomorrow?
Do we play today? I don't even check. We're not going. It's the end of the season. We're mid-table. We're not doing anything. I stopped checking.
Oh yeah, because of that. Fair enough.
I mean, we went on a huge losing streak in the middle of the season. Oh, we're actually winning against Rotterdam. Great, we're beating Rotterdam. But what are we in these days? When we're like 17th, 18th, something like that.
Oh geez. Okay. Well, just avoiding relegation then.
No, we're 13 points off relegation. That's a thing. That's the reality for Blackburn. We're a mid-table championship team. It's like kind of like the football equivalent of nowhere, of purgatory. You're just stuck there forever.
Well, it's better to be in purgatory in the championship than in League Two, where my beloved Leyton Orient sit.
I guess.
But I just can't wait until we can go back to grounds again. Hopefully soon. Smashing the vaccines over here pretty well so far. So I don't know. This whole vaccine passport thing. I'm not too sure about it all. But do you know what? If we can get games open again, you start going to theatres and live events. Yeah, just can't wait.
Yeah, here in the US, they already start open. People already going to watching games already, watching sports already in person.
Yeah.
I guess again, funny how a change in leadership can suddenly make everything better in a quick turnaround. Now the US is doing significantly better than most other parts of the world.
Funny how when someone competent is running your country or your club or your team, things work a bit better, right? Well, anyway, I'm gonna have to duck out as well. I have a pub booking to get to.
I see. Have fun.
So yeah, it's gonna be a nice boozy Saturday. But yeah, it was great catching up with you, mate.
Yeah, you too. How do we get this Craig to stop recording us?
I think we just hang up. I think we're good.
Okay.
Once I'm sure Bina will shut it off. I'll message her after and just let her know we're done.
Okay. Well, good talk to you finally in a while. It's been a while.
Yeah, mate. It's been a while, but definitely looking forward to talking about the Euros. It was fun doing the World Cup a few years ago, so we'll get that going again.
Good. All right.
All right, mate. All the best. Speak soon.
Bye.